Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 26 mini-series with the Los Angeles Angels. And we have made it almost to mid-July, almost to the All-Star break here in 2029, and less than 3 weeks away from the trade deadline. Given that at 53 and 39, we once again have the best record in the AL West, although we're in a pretty good battle with the Texas teams from Houston and the Dallas-Fort Worth area for the division title. We're probably going to be focused on trying to bring some talent onto this team over the next few weeks to help us in what is becoming a win-now type of situation for our Angels. But the focus in this episode is going to be on the first-year player draft, which is happening today. Been a couple of days since the last episode that we put out there, and we've gotten some pretty good feedback from the Worldwide Scouting Department on how we should potentially proceed. We're picking 34th this year, as we had the best record in the regular season in baseball last year, although unfortunately we were swept out of the playoffs in our first playoff series by the division rival Texas Rangers last October. And we also have the 38th pick in the draft, the final first-round compensatory pick coming up shortly because we got the prospect promotion incentive associated with Andres Rodriguez winning Rookie of the Year last year. So we're going to talk about the depth of feedback that we got from the Worldwide Scouting Department shortly. The one common theme from the Worldwide Scouting Department, unfortunately, is that the players who are left here at 34 and 38 are pretty uninspiring, and I agree with that assessment. So appreciate everyone who took a look at this draft for us and opined. Be going through all of the feedback that we've gotten, but I am not incredibly excited that we're going to find a real difference maker with these two upcoming picks. And there's three pitchers out there that got some attention from members of the Worldwide Scouting Department. One is the starting pitcher, Jason DeCaro, among several players that Peter Hooper mentioned. The 23-year-old apparently just got out of high school, but does have high leadership, adaptability, and work ethic. Looking for $8.5 million. Looks like if he reaches his full potential, he could be a pretty solid fourth or fifth starter, maybe even a little more than that if everything went incredibly well. But he is pretty old for a guy who, again, just played in high school at the age of 22 years old over this past season. So one of the little bugs that's still in the game, I'm hoping that this has been fixed by this point. I don't know about the creation of the draft pools, whether that's something that would be addressed if I have restarted the game, because this is a game that was started with the original version of OOTP about a month ago at this point. My hope is some of these little quirks with the draft pools are just happening at this point because I haven't started a brand new game on a new patch, and they won't be persisting into the future when we potentially start our long-term play in the not-too-distant future. Another guy we're looking at, Jon Voigts, starting pitching prospect, also liked by Peter Hooper, as well as Wright Slow, fragile 19-year-old. Did play in junior college last year. Some positive personality traits here. Another guy who looks like in a best case scenario could be a pretty respectable back end of the rotation starter. And then last but not least, the most popular player among the pitchers as far as the Worldwide Scouting Department. And if we're just counting the number of people who mentioned him, the most popular pick by the Worldwide Scouting Department of any of the options in this draft is the 24-year-old starting pitching prospect Joey Volchko. DLL first base 14, not my four-ply. Scott Donovan and Peter Hooper all noted him. Don't love the low work ethic, although there are some other positive personality traits. Looking for $3.6 million, pretty respectable stamina. Potential four-pitch arsenal, and his fastball and his slider aren't far off major league quality. I think his stuff, his movement and control could all be around major league quality. But he is already 24 years old, and he definitely needs some improvement in his stuff and his control, particularly to be a successful major leaguer. And given that he's got low work ethic and he's already 24 years old, still not even convinced that Volchko is definitely the right answer for us, unfortunately. Fortunately, though, there are several position players that were noted by members of the Worldwide Scouting Department. Tyler McNulty is not a guy that our scout loves, but Scott Donovan noted him as an option to consider. Not looking for much money. Certainly looks like he could have a respectable major league bat when all is said and done. Although the OSA is higher on him than we are, I'm probably inclined to go with our scout, who is not quite as constructive on Mr. McNulty. Some of the more highly regarded, at least in terms of their potential, by our scout players that we're thinking about are the catcher Justin Salvatore, was noted by Right Slow as a potential option. Looking for a lot of money for a guy in the number 34 or 38 pick. Looks respectable defensively and looks like a useful-ish major league bat. Not a lot of home run power, but think he can be a little bit above average in everything else, which with a solid glove at catcher and durability certainly does have some value. And I like that his nickname is Big Boss, all capitalized. Another guy to consider is the left fielder Chris Christ. Scott Donovan and DLL first base 14 both liked him. Doesn't bring much to the table defensively. Pretty meh as far as his speed, but we think his bat could be a little bit above average when all is said and done. Another couple guys out there that got some attention. Shortstop Alex Harrington. The same crew likes him. DLL first base 14 and Scott Donovan. Really like the glove for the Stanford product. Pretty good speed. The bat looks like it could be usable, particularly in the context of the really interesting glove that he has. Is 22 years old. Doesn't really have any special personality traits, but decent speed, a really good-looking glove, and a bat that we think can be acceptable are the attractive features. The less attractive features are that for a 22-year-old, he's got a lot of work to do to be major league quality. He's not particularly highly developed for a college junior, so that's certainly a negative, but I do think that Harrington is an interesting player to consider. Adam Lauer, third baseman, glove not that exciting. Do like the high leadership and work ethic, not looking for a ton of money, and a bat that looks like it could be slightly above average. Lauer was actually the most popular position player. Peter Hooper, Right Slow, and Scott Donovan all mentioned him among their multiple votes. And last, but hopefully not least among the position players, is the right fielder Sam Person. Scott Donovan also mentioned him. Another guy whose bat looks marginally interesting, not looking for a ton of money. Looks like he could be a competent corner outfielder, although certainly would hope that that error rating got better so he's not just constantly tracking down balls and then having them knock off the heel of his glove and go dropping into the outfield. So I can't say that I am in love with any of these options, but I am ultimately going to, we'll see what our scouting director recommends, and he recommends Sam Person, interestingly, the guy that we were just talking about. But I am going to go with a different player. We are going to align ourselves in this pick with Scott Donovan in DLL first base 14. And we're going to go with the shortstop out of Stanford, Alex Harrington. Not as far as long as I'd like for a guy with 3 years of college experience who's 22 years old. But the glove is certainly more than acceptable for a major leaguer. The speed, more than acceptable for a major leaguer. And we think the bat could be a average-ish major league bat if he fully develops. Looking for a good chunk of money, so he is one of the more expensive guys out there at $7.5 million. But I think he's the most interesting player around. So he will be our first round draft choice. We've got a little bit of extra money this year. We actually don't have a ton of extra money. I mean, we've got money to spend in the budget room, but I like to try to get the most I can out of trades, given that we're always playing on the hardest trade setting, so I'll take money back if people give it to us. I think there are some viewers who overestimate the value of that money because it is kind of only there for the season that you trade for it. And even though you have that money, when you spend it, it destroys your financials even more. And we're already set to lose $64 million this year, which I don't think is going to make Mr. Moreno incredibly happy. But going another $4.5 million over slot, so we're going to lose close to $70 million this year instead of $64 million. I don't think that that's going to have a real huge impact on how angry he is with us, whether we lose 70 or 65 or 60 or 75 for that sake. So we're going to go ahead and meet that demand. The one negative thing is that the ability to take on some more money in trades is going to get a little more limited for us going forward by spending 4.5 more than we have budgeted for, because when we look at our player development, we're basically right in line with our draft budget with the money that we put aside. But we got the money and we're going to spend it, so we're going to go ahead and meet Harrington's demand. Says he's going to be hard to sign, not going to mess around. And another one of the little things that's still wrong. Again, I hope this is just because I haven't updated or started a new game over after the updates. But it's saying we picked him with the first pick of the supplemental round rather than the 34th pick of the actual first round. And we will move on now to... Oh, I don't want to finish this round. Auto draft until our next pick. I've only been playing this game for decades. You would think I would know how to click properly to move forward. We'll check on who has been picked since we went. Volchko, the pitcher, was picked right after our pick of Harrington. And then Tyler McNulty also off. So the Mets and the Red Sox, the rivals from the 1986 World Series, take a couple of guys who would have certainly been under consideration for our next pick. And honestly can't say I love any of the options available. Pitching-wise and just overall, I think Jason DeCaro is the most interesting guy out there. I don't know that I want to go way over slot with another guy, given that we are a win-now team, and we're probably going to want to try to be renting a player or two down the stretch, and we're already limiting our financial flexibility a bit by going over slot for one guy. Our first pick with Mr. Harrington. So we are going to go with the position player that was the most highly regarded, who's also relatively reasonable. Peter Hooper, Wright Slow, and Scott Donovan liked Adin Lauer. Liked the high leadership and work ethic, high school player, only looking for $1 million, so he is a bit below slot. I think that's the direction we're going to go here. And we're going to go ahead and meet that $1 million demand for Mr. Lauer. And we'll sim ahead and see if there's anyone interesting on the board here in the second round. I'm assuming guys like Salvatore and Christ and DeCaro, who are looking for real big money, are the types of guys who are likely to still be lingering into the second and third rounds for us. And I could not have been more wrong because both Christ and Salvatore among the position players are now gone. And pitching-wise, DeCaro is gone too. So some teams were willing to go after those guys looking for big money. Nestor Romero, we talked about him last episode, impossible to sign. 18 years old, looks like he could be a pretty interesting pitcher. Might take a flyer on him in the third round. Thinking we'll just get a replacement pick for him next year if we don't sign him, which we're very unlikely to. Actually, I don't know if we'll go with the impossible to sign pitcher next round because there's a few guys I'm kind of interested in, hoping one of them might fall to next round. But here in the second round, scouting director recommends the starting pitcher Orlando Lund, 18-year-old, not particularly impressive potential stuff, not looking for a ton of money. Don't know that I'm taking him in the second round. We're going to go with a center fielder, Ryan Proctor. Looks like a borderline interesting bat. He is a potential two-way player, although there is no path except pure and extreme luck to him becoming even an effective minor league pitcher, much less a major league pitcher. But respectable glove, respectable bunter, respectable speed, good leader, and potentially above average contact and gap power. Also not looking for a ton of money. So we are going to go ahead and pick the center fielder Ryan Proctor in the second round. Moving on to our third pick, hoping that there's going to be a reliever we were looking at still here. And there is not. There was a reliever who we felt like was a little aggressive for the second round. And unfortunately, he's gone. The impossible to sign Nestor Romero still there, of course. So I'm going to take a little bit of time offline, investigate what's out there, and make a decision on what we should do in the third round. And here in the third round, the pickings are already pretty slim. Scouting director recommends a starting pitcher, Jose Ramos, stuff, movement, and control, all kind of in that average-ish range. Think he can throw in the mid to high 90s, like the high adaptability. Potential for a 4-pitch arsenal if everything works out, particularly with that change. I think we're going to go with a different high school pitcher, Ray Palmer. Similar profile. Think his stuff, movement, and control could all be in the average-ish range. Only a potential 3-pitch arsenal, and that includes developing a changeup and a cutter. But we like the high work ethic, adaptability, and leadership. Really good stamina, okay at holding on runners, and we like the durability. At $2 million, he's looking for more than slot. But we've saved a little bit with our supplemental first-round pick and our second-round pick, even though obviously for the draft we're going to be way over what we budgeted because of our first pick of Alex Harrington and the big money that he's looking for, we're going to go ahead and meet the demand for Ray Palmer and move on to the fourth round. And here in the fourth round, we're going to go with the catcher, Patrick Vurink. Pretty good at blocking, decent at framing, doesn't have the greatest arm in the world, but a little pop in the bat. The right-hander's committed to Louisville and only looking for a slot. So we're going to bring the catcher on board here in the fourth round. And moving on to round number 5. And we were hoping the impossible to sign pitcher might be around in the 5th round. Didn't want to take him in the 4th because if we were really that aggressive, we probably should have just taken him in the 3rd, where we could have gotten compensation next year. But if he lasted to the 5th, given that this draft is so meh, you never know. Coming out of the trade deadline, maybe we'll find a way to open up some money, trading someone away or getting some cash back in trade, and maybe we could have made a run at him, even though I think it was unlikely we'd have been able to have enough money to get him locked up. But now that's not an option. We'll let you know what we do in the 5th round, and then if we do anything else interesting in this draft, I'll check in. But it's kind of such a disappointing draft, at least in terms of the level of quality that has been available to us, that I don't think I'm going to spend a ton of time on it. And I actually don't hate our scouts' recommendation here for the 5th round. Starting pitcher Nelson Rodriguez out of Sacramento State. The stuff, not all that great. Think it's going to be borderline major league stuff. Ground ball pitcher who we think can barely throw in the 90s. But he's durable, decent stamina, potential 4-pitch arsenal, and his movement and control both not far off major league quality. Also just looking for slot. Not the most exciting acquisition in the world, but the one that we are going to make here in the 5th round of this pretty uninspiring draft. And we did not end up doing anything particularly interesting the rest of the way in the draft. You can see the 6 guys that we picked in the first 5 rounds. Going to be spending a lot more on Harrington than anticipated, and somewhat more on Palmer than anticipated in the 3rd round. Fortunately, our 5th round pick, our 2nd round pick, and our supplemental 1st round are looking for a little less than we had slotted. But that being said, going to come out of this draft likely spending more than we had anticipated. Pretty good mix of players, though. A couple starting pitchers, a catcher, an outfielder, and then a couple of infield prospects in the 1st round with Harrington and the supplemental pick with Lauer. And I mentioned earlier that we are definitely a win-now team right now. Tied with the Red Sox for the best record in baseball. Although they're percentage points ahead of us by virtue of having 1 fewer win and 1 fewer loss than we have at this point. But although we conceivably could have the best record in baseball this year, as I noted, only a game and a half up on the Astros, only 3.5 up on the Rangers. So it's not inconceivable that we could find ourselves in a wild card spot after a bad few days. And with the Rangers, who are only 3.5 behind us, not even being a wild card at this point. Certainly no guarantees that we're even going to make the playoffs, although my hope when I look at our team statistics and see that we've got the number 1 offense in the AL, the number 2 pitching staff in the AL, very good defensive team, and we're 6 games below expectations with pretty brutal records still in extra inning and 1-run games, that we've probably gotten unlucky so far and should be playing better going forward. That said, we are still taking a look at the trade market. Trading block wise, don't think there's an obvious option to really jumpstart our offense. The area that we probably need the most help in is a corner outfield spot. Emmanuel Rodriguez, who's on the block, is our own player. Jock Peterson, the only other guy who kind of fits the profile of someone who could help us offensively. But he's 37 years old, hitting a .186 this year. Below average offensive player and basically replacement level given his defensive limitations. Making a lot of money, and he's also got a vesting option for next season for 135 games. Could definitely help us, particularly against right-handed pitching, or if he couldn't help us, I don't think he could be any worse than what we've gotten from Rodriguez so far is our left-handed hitting left fielder. But you can see, even for a rental of an aging and expensive Jock Peterson, we'd have to send a pretty important player off our team to the Mariners to make that happen. But there is a trade for a pitcher that I'm thinking about pursuing. But I don't know how strongly I should pursue it. With the recent injury that unfortunately Michael King suffered, which is going to end his season this year since he's got another 4 months of recovery ahead of him. We've moved George Klassen back into our number 5 starter role. He's 6-4 this year with a 3.71 ERA. 27-year-old is a guy who's been up and down with us over the past few years. He's actually done a pretty respectable job in the majors for the last few seasons. Was disastrous in 2026 when we first brought him up. But since then, he's occasionally started games for us, had an ERA in the mid-3s to mid-4s over the past few years at the major league level. Over the course of his career, he's still been below replacement level. Don't love the below average control, but we think his stuff and his movement could still be above average. Now, as a 27-year-old, you kind of have to wonder how much positive development still can happen. And you kind of have to think that our scout thinking that there's a lot of untapped potential here in his curve and his cutter, particularly at the age of 27, might be a little bit optimistic. But as a number 5 starter, particularly a guy who's only a number 5 starter because we've had some injuries and otherwise would be in the bullpen, we could certainly do worse than him. If and when we make it to the playoffs, we're going to be fine with a 4-man rotation with Schwellenbach, Bradley, Scott, and the rookie Riley. The concern for me is if we lose one of those 4 guys over the next few months and they're out for the playoffs, then we do have Klassen as a guy who would be our 4th starter for the playoffs, which for a win-now team is probably not optimal. So I did take a look at the trading block for the pitchers who are available as well. And not a ton out there. The most interesting is Logan Gilbert of the Mariners. 32-year-old is in the final year of a contract, so he would be a pure rental, making a lot of money, so not necessarily real easy to fit on our team. He's not having a great year with the Mariners, 3-7 record with an ERA of close to 5. That said, he's still striking out almost 10 batters per 9 innings, not walking a lot of people. But he definitely gives up home runs. He's given up 16 this year in 109 2/3 innings. His rating suggests that he's susceptible to home runs, and he's also got extreme fly ball tendencies and throws pretty hard. So he's definitely been a guy who's allowed some home runs over the course of what has been a really nice career for him. More than 1 per 9 innings, and he's higher than that rate this year. But his FIP minus is still above average. His SIERA significantly better than his ERA. BABIP against him is 352 this year. So there's reason to think he's perhaps just gotten unlucky. I'd feel a little better with him than Klassen as a fourth starter in the playoffs. Honestly, I don't love him as an option, even though, Logan Gilbert is a established name in real baseball at this point and has had a nice career in this world for Seattle. He's expensive for what he is. And, well, that's unfortunate. And this is the downside of me spending that extra money that we had available. There were a few players who made this deal work before we went to the draft. We'll see if we get them to retain a little bit of Gilbert's contract, what's out there. And unfortunately, Schwellenbach, who we're obviously not going to give up, Volpe is having a rough year for us with a 54 WRC plus and below replacement level as a utility infielder. But I still don't think I would give him up just to rent Logan Gilbert. One of the guys, when we had more money, who they were interesting to trade for him was Dylan Cruz, who is the, I guess, more productive part of our very disappointing left field platoon. The right-handed hitting Cruz has been playing for us, starting only primarily against left-handed pitching. Only hitting 209 this year, 85 WRC plus. He's basically been replacement level. He's a guy who, again, kind of similar in a way to Gilbert. He's a guy who, as we sit here in the real world in 2025, is known as a up-and-coming prospect. But he's really kind of become a usable major league player in this world and not more than that. And he's set to make about $8 million in arbitration next year. I hate to weaken that left field position for us, which is already a pretty significant position of weakness. And we can definitely throw in another player with him, and you can see there's tons of options here to get them to keep more of his contract, which we probably need to do because I don't know that Gilbert is going to be the be-all and end-all for us as far as the trades that we need to make. So this is definitely the downside of going with Harrington, who was looking for $4.5 million more than Slot. Because it kind of, if we do make this trade for Gilbert, puts us in a bind where we're going to essentially have no financial flexibility to make another trade to perhaps bolster ourselves in left field after we move on from Cruz. If we move on from Cruz. Feel a little better about the depth of our pitching staff if we bring Gilbert on board and we have some injuries going forward. But as I noted, we're weakening the weakest position on our team, which is left field, by giving up Cruz. And although I don't think we want to be paying him $8 million next year, probably wouldn't. there's still some option value there that we're giving up by bringing on Gilbert, a guy who is certainly not going to be with us next year, with the fact that he's still probably looking for a pretty big paycheck next season. And we've got a deal together that's basically neutral for us financially. Our available money going to actually improve by $32,000. So we'll still have around $5 million left to potentially take on another contract as we get closer to the trade deadline in this win now year. Oh, I guess we're still only projected to lose $64 million because we haven't signed those guys yet. But I think that number is going to get lower soon. But we're sending Cruz. We're also sending away Jose Berrios, who had been with us. We let him go, and we signed him as a minor league free agent this year. He's a borderline major league arm. Maybe Seattle being a team that's trading away Gilbert, and is also in last place, 16 games behind in the division here on July 11th. Maybe they're viewing Berrios as a guy who can just eat some innings for them at a major league level, but they were willing to include him, which let their salary retention for Gilbert go up. And then we also had to include Lorenzo Carrier, who's a guy we picked in the 12th round out of Miami 4 years ago. He's a very borderline two-way player. We have been letting him pitch in relief from time to time to try to develop him, but thought he was more useful as a potential outfielder. Like his speed, like his glove, and he's actually got a little bit of home run pop. He's made it to Double-A for us, where he hit 29 homers a year ago, and he's got 20 homers in just 259 at-bats in Double-A this year. He's 26 years old, and we've never even bothered to promote him to Triple-A, so I can't claim we're viewing him as a gem of a prospect. And given that including him in the deal helps us at least get to neutral money-wise on this trade, we're going to go ahead and make the deal. I can't say I feel great about it. I'm sure I'll hear from those of you who don't feel great about it either. I think Gilbert does upgrade our number 5 starter a bit over Klassen. I think I feel a little bit better if we have to use Gilbert as a pitcher in the postseason as a 4th starter because we have another injury rather than Klassen. So that's the reason why I'm doing it. But as I talked about, we're kind of losing a guy that we'd still have control over next year in Cruz, weakening the weakest position on our roster by getting rid of Cruz, and also, trading away a potentially useful outfield piece in Carrier. So I feel like we might be solving a minor problem, but kind of making a more significant problem a little worse by doing this trade. But we still got the financial flexibility if we can find another deal down the line. So I'm going to go ahead and complete it. The fans were excited to see Gilbert on board. Actually got a 4-point boost to fan interest. We'll have to track how bad fan interest gets hits this upcoming off season when he leaves us. But it gives us the opportunity to, I think, make our rotation a little bit better. And as I said, give us just a little bit more insurance. Not that I'm wishing for trouble, but if Schwellenbach, Bradley, Scott, or Riley went down, I think I feel a little bit better having Gilbert as a 4th starter come playoff time than George Klassen, which is kind of the rationale from my perspective to make this deal. And we're still actually going to let Klassen start for us today, even though we put Gilbert onto the roster, because Gilbert threw 108 pitches 3 days ago, and everyone else would be on short rest, while Klassen is actually the guy who was supposed to be going today. So we've got an off day tomorrow, which will help us straighten things out going forward. But Klassen will get one final start, watch him pitch incredibly, and make me think that we really didn't need to make this trade. Well, I don't know how well Klassen pitched, but we scored 3 touchdowns against the Royals in a 21-5 victory. 6 runs in the third, 3 in the fourth, and then 9 in the sixth. A monster game for the young catcher, well, not the young catcher, but the rookie catcher, Michael Kim. 5 for 6, 2 runs scored, 4 ribbies, all of the ribbies on a grand slam home run. Klassen, 3 hits, 3 walks, 6 strikeouts, 4 runs, 2 of them earned over 4 1/3 innings. So actually the type of outing, even though we had a big win, that makes me think it was perhaps wise to try to move on from him and bring Gilbert on board. But at this point, we've got just 3 more games at home left against those Mariners, who we just made a trade with before we get to the All-Star break. And at that point, we'll find out who's on the All-Star team and then call it an episode. And next time we'll come back and sim the final couple weeks of July, see if maybe there's some other trades for us to make as we get closer to this trade deadline. And we ended up taking 2 out of 3 against Seattle at home, so we head into the All-Star break with a 56-40 record. 583 winning percentage is the best in baseball. We are a game and a half better than the Cubs and the Red Sox for that best record in baseball. As we sit here at the All-Star break, the shortstop Wakabayashi, the big international free agent signing from a year ago, second in the AL with a .337 batting average. Andres Rodriguez, second in the AL in homers and ribbies. Kyle Tucker, third in the league in ribbies. Rodriguez, second in OPS, second in batter WAR. Wakabayashi, third in batter WAR. Michael King, for another couple of days, continues to lead the American League in ERA. 96 innings pitched on the season. Actually, he'll, as soon as we play one game after the All-Star break, 96 games into the season, and he pitched 96 innings for us. So he will lose his chance at the ERA title after we play our first game post the All-Star break. Taj Bradley tied for the league lead in wins, and the rookie Jake Riley now second in the American League in pitcher WAR, as we try to see if we can have back-to-back rookies of the year. So feel like we're in a pretty good spot here. Taking a look at the All-Star game rosters, and Kyle Tucker was the player of the week. He is overall got great morale, but as some of you have noted, he's very unhappy with his role on the team right now. He wants to be the cleanup hitter, and he's finally actually producing like a guy who could be a cleanup hitter, hitting .277, 21 homers, 65 ribbies, 144 WRC plus for us this year, and obviously coming off of a big week. All-Star prospects rosters. We'll see how many players we have. Heriberto Garza, our IAFA signing from 2028. Starting his career in the DSL, 0-1 with a 6.85 ERA. He's allowed 32 hits and 13 walks in just 22 1/3 innings, so his whip is over 2. Has not been particularly impressive as a 17-year-old playing in the DSL. But his potential is still noted as he's considered the number 19 prospect in baseball. Guy who's closer to be able to help us, Tyler Koopman, 5th-round pick from a couple of years ago. He is 2-4 with 13 saves and an ERA of over 5 in Salt Lake this year. Another guy where the control is a big issue. 22 walks and 32 innings pitched. If he's ever able to harness that control, I think he could be a pretty interesting pitcher for us. Ground ball tendencies, throws triple digits, brilliant fastball and a changeup that's coming along nicely. But he's certainly not impressing us that he needs a very quick promotion with the way that he's been playing in AAA. Another potential reliever, Mike Scott, former 11th round pick from that 2027 draft. Started this year in A-ball, promoted to high A, and then we recently promoted him to double A, where he's picked up another couple saves, hasn't allowed a run or a hit over 3 1/3 innings. He's combined for 24 saves across those 3 levels this year. So he's listed as the number 64 prospect in baseball. So 3 Angels pitchers in the All-Star Prospects game. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we've got any position players who were selected for the game. Looking at the real All-Star team, Michael King, despite the injury in that torn rotator cuff that ended his season, is named to the All-Star team for the Angels. So honorary and somewhat hollow award for him from that perspective. Looking at the rest of the All-Stars, we've got 3 position players who made the team. No shock. The shortstop Wakabayashi, who we're paying a lot of money to after he came over from Japan, put up a 4.2 WAR this year, hitting .337, second in the AL, 431 on base percentage, 145 WRC plus. He's also been an above-average defensive shortstop for us. No surprise to see Swaney on the All-Star team. No surprise to see last year's Rookie of the Year and Silver Slugger winner Andres Rodriguez get his first All-Star nod. He's now hitting .303, already has 30 homers with 74 ribbies at the All-Star break. Only 5 steals, but he's putting up a ridiculous 164 WRC plus. OPS of over 1,000, and he's already got 5.5 WAR here on July 16th. So he's worked out incredibly well for a guy who was the 6th overall pick for us out of the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown. And then I guess we have 2 more All-Stars, as our entire outfield is All-Stars. Kyle Tucker, not surprising. We've talked about him having by far the best season he has had for us in his 3.5 seasons with us in the Angels. But the surprise is a guy who I wasn't sure was going to make the 26-man roster, the 25-year-old center fielder Anthony Scull, hitting .316 for us on 250 at-bats, 9 homers, 50 ribbies, 9 steals. He's put up a 141 WRC plus. He has been our everyday designated hitter against right-handed pitching. Probably getting close to a spot where we move him potentially into left field for us to upgrade the defense. We already, of course, traded away Cruz. We're going to have to figure out whether or not the current left fielder, Emmanuel Rodriguez, has a future for us or with us this year with that brutal 175 batting average and 246 at-bats. So probably some more work to do in the outfield now. And again, we have weakened our outfield. And I just realized since I've been talking through this episode, we traded away Cruz, and we've only been playing with 12 position players. So stupidly been running with a roster of only 25 guys at the major league level for the past few days since the draft. And we made that trade since I was kind of talking through things live with you for the most part here. So we will bring up another major leaguer for after the All-Star break and continue to investigate the trade market. We've got about 2 weeks now until we get to the trade deadline. Still certainly think there's hopefully something out there that we can do to make this team better. and we'll focus on trying to figure out what that is the next time around. Until our next episode, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.